Hello, and welcome to this video about the CPCAB model of helping work and counselling practice. The model emerged from research on the core elements of counsellor proficiency and their development in counselling training. It's been updated to reflect contemporary research findings and the insights gained from its application across thousands of counselling courses. The CPCAB progression route of counselling qualifications is based on this model. The CPCAB model has 3 parts. Each part is generic, which means that it applies to all counselling approaches. 1. 7 processes of supporting change. These are applied to 2. 3 levels of client change. It can be divided into 3 dimensions of change. This first part of the model applies to both helpers and counsellors, while parts 2 and 3 concern working as a counsellor rather than a helper. For many years, researchers tried to understand what made counselling effective. They did this by comparing the treatments provided by various different counselling approaches. So there was an assumption based on the medical model that the treatment was the only active ingredient that caused clients to change. Carl Rogers founded counselling in the 1940s. In the process, he turned the medical model on its head by making the client, not the treatment, the active ingredient, and questioning the whole idea of there being a treatment at all. In other words, clients, rather than the experts with their treatments, were suddenly placed at the centre of things. Rogers changed the profession with this revolutionary approach, and since then researchers have struggled to catch up. Contemporary research has confirmed that the main contribution to effective counselling is made not by any specific treatment, but rather by shared elements that are common to all approaches. Known as the common factors, they consist of 1. The relationship factors, the quality and effectiveness of the counselling relationship. 2. The client factors. These include factors that can be outwardly observed, such as the client's ethnic background, and factors that can only be inferred, like the client's level of motivation and hope. 3. The counsellor factors. The qualities and effectiveness of the particular counsellor, together with their ability to use self-awareness in the therapeutic process. Evidence for the importance of these common factors comes, for example, from recent research from the American Psychological Association. This involved 100,000 clients across more than 400 research studies. It found that the common factors make the greatest contribution to client change, with the client factors being the most important of all. This same study, together with other research, also found that treatment factors do make an important contribution to therapeutic change. The CPCAB model proposes, however, that there are important aspects of these treatment factors that are common to all the counselling approaches, and the third part of the CPCAB model provides a generic framework for organising these commonalities. So taken all together, there are 4 categories of research-identified factors that contribute to therapeutic change. The 7 processes of supporting change, which represent the first part of the CPCAB model, are based on the 4 categories of factors that contribute to therapeutic change. These are combined with a special emphasis on client factors. Because researchers have identified client factors as the most important, the model places the helpee or client at the centre of the work. It does this by allocating 1 process for observed client factors and 1 process for inferred client factors. And finally, 2 other key elements of helping and counselling practice working within a professional framework, and working as a reflective practitioner. When these are all added together, they form 7 helping and counselling processes, 7 ways of supporting change. 1. Working ethically and safely. 2. Working with the relationship. 3. Working with difference and diversity. 4. Working with a primary focus on the helpee or client. 5. Working with self-awareness. 6. Working within a coherent framework of skills and theory. 7. Working reflectively. These 7 processes interact together. They're a little bit like 7 balls which the helper or counsellor juggles. Helpers can work with these 7 processes to enable a person to reflect on themselves and their life, get clearer about their problems, and identify better ways of coping. Likewise, counsellors can also work with these same 7 processes to support clients to change aspects of both their lives and themselves. Additionally, when a helper or counsellor uses these processes to help someone explore their life problems or change themselves, they are working in a way that is supported by the latest research on what's actually effective. At each level of training, the 7 processes reflect the depth and focus of that level of training and articulate the associated increase in the learner's skills, proficiency and autonomy. All clients come to counselling because they want to change something. Research has shown that counselling works when the client instigates change supported by a particular kind of therapeutic environment. An environment in which the counsellor uses not just their theoretical understandings and skills, but themselves and the counselling relationship, together with an ethical and reflective approach to their work. The first part of the CPCAB model integrates these research conclusions within the 7 processes of supporting change. The model also describes 3 levels of counsellor proficiency associated with 3 service levels, a framework on which CPCAB's counselling progression route is based. This service level model can sometimes be difficult to apply in the real world of clients, but it does offer a useful generic framework for thinking about different levels of client need and associated therapeutic change, as well as providing an effective educational framework for the development of counsellor proficiency. It's also helpful for trainee counsellors to reflect on the different service levels in relation to their limits of ability. We all have good times and bad times in life. Sometimes, in the bad times, we can get overwhelmed by our problems and need help to cope with them. Informal helping work provides support by enabling a person to reflect on themselves and their life, get clear about their problems, and identify better ways of coping. This is important and useful, but where problems are more severe, a person might seek to change things for the better by seeing a counsellor. The CPCAB model proposes at this level of work, a counsellor can support clients to cope better through a more in-depth exploration of the client's life problems. The model also proposes that life's problems can be helpfully understood as having 3 dimensions. Sometimes, however, the problems are not out there in life, but within ourselves. The medical model calls these mental health problems, normally divided into common mental health problems such as anxiety and depression, and severe and complex mental health problems such as bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. But rather than focusing on mental health problems, the CPCAB model focuses on the type of change that is required. change within the self. The model proposes that this change can take place at both an explicit level and an implicit level. Importantly, at the explicit level, it may be possible to work in a goal-directed way towards change. But at the implicit level, the client may need to change aspects of themselves that have been deeply hidden or buried. This kind of change is often incremental rather than linear, since it takes more time and requires the development of a deeper level of trust, both with the counsellor and within the client's self. The model also proposes that the theories and techniques or treatments associated with this level of work can be organised into 3 dimensions of the self. The CPCAB model proposes that the foundations of the self are developed during childhood. It also takes account of the distinction between common and severe mental health problems, and proposes that some clients categorised with severe mental health problems may be helped by working on aspects of the foundations of themselves. Once again, the model puts forward the idea that the psychological treatments associated with this work can be organised in relation to the 3 dimensions of the self. This type of work requires an associated level of counsellor proficiency. It's also important to recognise, however, that many clients with severe mental health problems may not be suitable for counselling and may, for example, need referring to a psychiatrist. This third part of the CPCAB model proposes that as part of the process of changing themselves or the foundations of themselves, it's helpful for clients to explore 3 dimensions of the self, and that counsellors can therefore support clients to change the way they relate with themselves, the way they relate with the outside world, and especially the world of others, the way they relate with their personal history. Each of the various counselling approaches have developed a range of theories and techniques or treatments, and this third part of the CPCAB model provides a generic framework for these various treatment factors. 1. The internal dimension, changing the way we relate within ourselves. Clients can't change who they are, but they can often change things for the better by changing the ways they relate within themselves. Different theories offer different ways of understanding this internal dimension of the self. In transactional analysis, for example, the counsellor might help the client to uncover a conflict between an angry internal parent and an anxious internal child, and then work to change this relationship for the better. 2. The relational dimension, changing the way we relate with others. Clients can't change other people, but they can often change things for the better by changing their ways of relating with others, their habitual patterns of perceiving, communicating and behaving with their partner, parents, children, friends or colleagues. These changes often need to initially take place within the safety of the counselling relationship, where the client can test out new ways of relating. 3. The developmental dimension, changing the way we relate with our past. Clients can't change the past, but they can often change things for the better by changing the ways they relate with their past. They can, for example, change the stories they tell themselves about their development across the life course, or change their emotional response to past traumatic events. The life problems that were mentioned earlier under Service Level A can also be helpfully understood as having 3 dimensions: the individual person, in their relationships, at a particular developmental stage in the life course. Through reflecting on themselves, their relationships and their life stage, clients can identify better ways of coping with their life problems. At this level of work, the counsellor can also, therefore, draw on their understanding of people, relationships, and the life course when supporting clients to cope with their life problems. Okay, that's it. We're all done. I hope this video has been of some help in explaining the CPCAB model of counselling practice. Thanks for watching.